What's up, golfers? Welcome back to New 9 Golf. Today I got my hands on the brand new Callaway Rogue driver lineup. There's 4 different drivers, so I'm going to break down the differences between all 4 of the drivers. I'm also going to hit them, get some data, and find out which is best for my game. I'll give you my visual impressions, how they sound, and how they feel to see if it's something that I recommend you go out and get fit for. It's time to take a look at these drivers, but before we move on, smash subscribe and turn on post notifications. Our small little golf channel is almost at 5,000 subscribers, and that's a huge milestone for us. We have a huge giveaway plan for when we hit 5K, and you're only eligible if you are a subscriber. Smash subscribe, turn on post notifications. Let's take a look at the new Callaway Rogue driver lineup. Okay guys, so the new Rogue ST lineup, all of the drivers, despite there being some subtle differences, they for the most part all look very similar. 2022 is the year of carbon, so the crown on the top of the club has a kind of fade to black, if you will, Metallica reference, and it goes into the carbon on the back of the crown. It looks awesome, but it's almost like a matte finish. It's not too shiny and it's very flat, so the carbon doesn't stick out. The accents they have this year are kind of like a copper gold. So on the crown, there's kind of a semicircle of this copper lining, and the weight at the back is also copper, and there's a slight copper underneath the Rogue. I think overall it looks awesome. I'll dive into the specifics of each driver. The first one we're going to look at is the Rogue ST Max. This is the starting point for the new Rogue lineup. It is the highest MOI driver, and what that means in a nutshell is it's the most forgiving. It should go the highest, and if you're someone that isn't very consistent in striking the center of the club face, if you hit it on the toe, hit it on the heel, hit it thin, in theory, this driver is supposed to make the best results if you are not as consistent as maybe a low handicap. It is also a slight draw bias. So if you're someone that hits kind of a bit of a fade or sometimes a slice, the slight draw bias should in theory help you. This is the starting point for the Callaway Rogue lineup, and that is the Rogue Max. The next driver we're going to be taking a look at is the Callaway Rogue ST Max D. What's the Max D? I'll give you the Max D. The Max D is the max draw bias. What they've changed in this head is on the bottom right, you'll see or I guess it's your left, my right. Down here is a weight, and what that is doing is adding more weight to the heel. It's also more upright. In theory, what that's gonna do is if you're someone that hits a big slice, if you're right-handed and you hit that big slice to the right, this draw bias driver should help the club head come around a bit easier, help you turn over the club. I'll note too that the weight at the back, they're not movable. So this year in all of the Rogues and all 4 models, you're not gonna be playing around with any weight system. Callaway seems to do every other year, they'll make a driver with a movable weight system. Last year, the last series was the Epic. The Epic had the big weight in the back that you can move around. Not this year. You're gonna be looking at a different head instead of playing around with a wrench and adjusting the weight. That's the Max D, the Max Draw. I'm interested in hitting this because I'm someone that plays a cut. If you follow a lot of our videos, you know that my shot shape is the cut. Why do I hit a cut? Well, cuts win major championships, and that's why I hit the cut. So I'm excited to see if this straightens my dispersion or to see if I can really turn one over. So I'm excited to hit this. Okay, both of those drivers are kind of for the weekend warrior, your kind of everyday golfer. Now we're diving into some player drivers. These are what I'm excited about as a low handicap. These are the 2 drivers that I most want to hit. First, we're going to take a look at the Callaway Max LS. So many abbreviations. Why can't we just tell it what it is? LS is low spin. This driver is supposed to launch it lower and have low spin. It still looks awesome, still has the same crown. It looks visually the same as the other 2, but there's no draw weight. So that's the Rogue ST Max LS, low spin, and it has a neutral setting, so it's not biased to a draw or to a fade. The next driver that we're going to look at does have a fade bias. Last up, this is the least forgiving driver, and it is most geared towards the best players. This is what the guys on tour, most of them, are using. John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, they use this driver. This is the Rogue ST Triple Diamond LS. What do I think of when they say triple diamond? I think of on a ski hill in the Alberta Rocky Mountains where we are, is triple diamond would be the hardest run. Well, it's no different than this driver. It's a smaller head, so it won't have as high MOI as the Max, which is their biggest driver. It's only 440 cc's. The other ones are 460. Again, this Players Club is a lower trajectory driver, keeping the spin down as well, but this has a fade bias. So I'm interested to see the difference in the Max LS versus the triple diamond LS to see if I have a bigger dispersion to the right because that's already my natural ball flight. Regardless, I'm really excited to hit all of these. They look awesome. So first looks and looking at all 4 drivers, they look really sweet. Something cool Callaway's offering is you can fully customize this driver head. Anywhere that there's gold on this driver, all these little accents, you can change that color. You can go on the Callaway website and pick out if you want this line to be pink or this to be turquoise or this line to be blue. You can fully customize it. These drivers start at $549 US or $699 Canadian. If you want to do the customizing, it's another $100 US or 130 Canadian. But it's a cool feature that Callaway's offering, and you can do that if you build it on the website, or you can just tell your club fitter that those are the colors that you want. I'll let you guys know too that we are using a TrackMan to get all of our data. We're also using a Titleist Pro V1 RCT ball, which is a specific ball for TrackMan to try to get you guys the best data possible. We are using the stock shaft, which is a Tensi 65 gram extra stiff. It's not my personal shaft, but to keep everything the same across these reviews, we're using that Tensi. Okay, let's talk about these. First impressions, looking at it, it looks awesome. I love, it's almost like a two-tone at the on the crown. When it's close up, I couldn't really tell, but when it's far away, this matte black separates the carbon. So looking at it, very visually appealing. The face is kind of like a metal gray, and it looks really good. Feeling wise, when I take it back, I could feel this weight. It's kind of the first driver in a long time that I think I could feel the weight at the end of the club. And I was having sometimes trouble timing my swing. So that I could feel right away. My very first swing, I took it out, I'm like, oh, I could feel that weight at the top. The Rogue Max isn't the first driver I would personally pick up out of the lineup. This is for people that have trouble getting the ball in the air. It's got a huge MOI like we talked about, that it's a very forgiving club. It just doesn't really suit my game, and it's spinning a lot for me. I thought first impressions though it sounded really good, and my biggest drives felt really good. I'm looking forward to hitting the next series of drivers, the Max D, and then getting into the LS, the low spin. I did notice the slight draw bias. So you guys who watch my videos know that I have a bit of a cut as my natural shot shape. I felt like my miss on these sometimes was kind of a big over the top pull. So I'm not sure if that's the draw bias closing the face, or if for whatever reason I just couldn't swing my normal cut line, but I noticed that I was missing left more often than with my current driver. That's my first thoughts on the Rogue though. It sounded awesome. Like, it sounded really good. I'm a huge visuals guy as well as the sound. Those are some of the most important things. Okay, so looking at the average of all those drives, I'm looking at the dispersion, and it looks like I have a two-way miss going, that I have just as many almost going left as I do right. And again, the shaft will definitely narrow that dispersion. If I had my fitted shaft, that would narrow. But looking at the numbers, I was getting decent ball speed, like just under 170. 168 was my average ball speed, but my spin was high, and I knew that. My spin rate at about 3,200 is almost 1,000 RPM higher than normal. So I'm gonna be seeing if the different heads as I go into the low spin, if that changes it. My carry was decent, around a 292 carry with a 312 total. Those aren't the biggest numbers I've ever hit out of all the driver reviews. That's pretty much around standard. Again, we're in Calgary, Alberta. The elevation is about 3,500 feet elevation. But overall, with this being the most forgiving driver, I would take most of those numbers minus the spin, obviously. I'm interested to see when I hit the Max D if I have more misses left, just because of its draw bias. With the Rogue ST Max being their most forgiving driver, I'm getting the ball in the air and it's going a pretty far distance. So I think if you're in that category of kind of the everyday average golfer, the Rogue ST Max is definitely a good starting ground. I did just hit the Rogue Max, and like I said, it's not the driver that I think I would lean to, and the fitters at Modern Golf said, you know, it's not the club necessarily for you, and that's because I swing it fast and I hit a pretty big ball. Is that good? I don't know. All jokes aside, the next club that I'm going to hit is the Callaway Max D. The Max D, we're bringing in the Max D, the Max Draw. I'm excited to see if I have more misses left because it's a draw bias club. There is that weight that I mentioned, so in theory the toe should close more, I guess, because it is a more draw bias. This is for slicers. If you slice the golf ball, this driver should be for you. Again, still forgiving, but I want to hit it and see the results. If I hit it more left, we'll know right away. Okay, Max D looks the exact same as the Max. I don't see anything visually different. Let's find out the type of results we get. Definitely holding the line better. Okay. First impression still sounds awesome. I'm blown away, to be honest, the sound of both the Rogue Max D and the Max. They sound awesome. When I'm picking a driver, sound is so important to me. If I put two drivers side by side, one sounded great, but I had maybe 5 yards less distance. The other sounded like crap, but I got 5 yards more difference. I'd probably pick the one that sounds better. I gotta live with this on the golf course, and I gotta live with it for the next 3 or 4 years, depending on how long I keep it. And sound to me personally is just one of those things that is so important. These sound awesome. Like legit, they sound really good. The draw bias. I didn't have a snap hook, and I was kind of expecting it to really turn over. It didn't. I had like a pretty tight draw, right? My spin was still up there because again, the Max D is on their forgiving side, similar to the Max. I'm interested as we get into the LS to see if it's gonna do what it's supposed to say and bring the spin down. Overall, felt really good. Let's take a look at the numbers here. So again, my dispersion was, again, kind of all over the place. I had some left and I had some go right. Again, that's probably more into the shaft, but I was hitting it high. So if you struggle getting the ball in the air, both the Max and the Max D are good options to get the ball in the air. My spin, like I said, was high. We knew that. 3,400 RPM spin is crazy high. Will the LS bring it down 1,000 RPM? That's a pretty big number for these heads to bring down, 1,000 RPM on a new head, but we'll see. I got good distance, 291, 210 total, that being the average. I had one that felt really big. What one was that? 311 carry, 331. That would be normal for me, being like my biggest hit of the day. Like that one I really tried to go at. 171 ball speed, I think that might be the biggest ball speed I've got out of all of them. And my spin was down. So my spin fluctuated. Again, there's probably more Indian error than the arrow, but that's why I'm using the same shaft, using these heads, that my best fit or my best hit felt really good. And I have a natural cut, and that looked like it cut 1 or 2 yards. 2 yards off of the right of the line. So far out of the distance, I'm not like wowed out of both of them, the Max and the Max D. They're about on average of what I would expect. The positives going forward is it sounds awesome. So I already touched on that. Now is the real test to put these LS heads in the shaft to see if the spin comes down. Because LS, what do we say it stands for? Low spin. I'm gonna test both the Max LS and the Triple Diamond LS. I'm kind of nervous of this Triple Diamond. You know, it's kind of an intimidating name, knowing that these players use it. It's the hardest to hit, it's the smallest head. We're gonna save that for last. First, let's check out the Max LS. So the shoes I'm rocking today, if you're a sneakerhead like me, are the Jordan 4s Cements in the all whites. You guys know I'm a big sneakerhead. If you're new to the channel, I do love Jordans. That 9 times out of 10, actually probably 10 times out of 10 I'm wearing Jordans. So that's what we're rocking for this video. Okay, I'm building the Max LS low spin. If I was to pick one of these 4 drivers off the shelf, what I would expect for my game, I would pick up the Max LS. It's a neutral bias, so hopefully the spin comes down, and now we'll find out. Oh, 121. It only 122 club speed, 306 total. Okay, this driver so far is the least forgiving. None of them went left. So my shot shape was consistent, but my dispersion was pretty far to the right. It's way less forgiving. Why is that? The other two have a higher MOI. So the dispersion across the face isn't as good as the Max and the Max D, but the biggest test that I wanted to find was the spin. Did the spin go down in my last series of hits with the LS than with the Max or the Max D? Nope, didn't go down. That is kind of annoying from a consumer perspective. If I come in here for a fitting, I say, hey, Modern Golf, fit me for the brand new Rogue. I hit the Max D, high spin. Oh, no problem. We'll give you the Max LS, the Max low spin. I didn't have lower spin. I could bore you guys and hit 500 drives and really find out, is it gonna come down a little bit? But in all the hits that I just did, it didn't drop drastically. It actually went up. So that's weird out of those results. It still felt good. I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, in the Max LS. That it still sounded good, but I was really hoping that spin to drop because that's the whole point of this thing being the Max LS low spin. The last test is the triple diamond. So we'll hook that, see if those numbers go down. And it's the smallest head. So my dispersion was bad on the Max LS. Chances are the dispersion is going to be even worse on the triple diamond, but we won't know till we hit it. So let's build that and A, see if the spin goes down, and B, see if I can tighten my dispersion.
Like between the look of this versus like the TaylorMade, what do you think?
It looks really good. It doesn't look bad.
Yeah, I like the look of it.
The colorway, I'm not like a huge like gold copper guy, so I would potentially change that. But like just drop $130 just to change the colors. That's steep, right? So one thing that I do really like in the Callaway drivers is the adapter that you can change. I told you guys we put it on a -1 loft to turn it into 8 degrees. It's on the neutral setting. What I like about this adapter is that it doesn't change the grip. So if you're someone that, you know, sometimes people align the manufacturer down the shaft. In other manufacturers, if you change the setting, now all of a sudden your grip is off center. Where Callaway, just this is changing in the hosel and it doesn't change your grip. So that's one benefit if you're leaning towards the Callaway line. Last driver that we're gonna hit is the smallest, least forgiving, but it's also supposed to be the lowest spin. This has been an interesting test so far to keep everything the same from the shaft to the driver setup. Again, I didn't do a full fitting, but to keep everything the same, it's good to see what our results are. Will the spin be the lowest with this head? I sure hope so, because that's what it's telling me that is the lowest spinning driver. Let's give it some hits, see what type of results we get. Trying to fucking turn it over. Like I had one good hit. Callaway wasn't lying when they said it was the hardest driver to hit. It was frustrating. I had like one good hit out of all the ones that I did, or one that I would be like super happy with. So is it forgiving? Nope. Did it bring my spin down? Let's pull up the numbers. It did bring my spin down, but look at that dispersion. Oh my God. This hurts my ego as a +2 handicap that this is the dispersion on my driver. Let's look at the other ones. The Max LS, Max D, and the Max had like decent dispersion. Does that look like a plus handicap? I would say no. But the spin came down. That's what we were hoping for. I'm confident that I could dial all of these drivers down with the right head adjustments. That's not what this video is for. This video, we left the settings all the same just to see the difference in what the head does. Is this the lowest spinning head that they offer? Yes. Thank God. I would be confident in dialing in likely the Max LS. I don't need to get the ball in the air. So for me to hit the Max or to hit the Max D, it's really not playing to my strengths. I need low spin is all that I need. The distance was virtually the same across the board. From that 290 carry to like a 320 total was pretty consistent for all of them. The Rogue Triple Diamond LS is a smaller head, and visually I didn't see like a huge difference. Looking at it, it still looks like a driver. If I put it beside the Max or the Max D, even just the LS, I would see a slight difference, but holding it, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is a really small driver. So if that's something that you're hesitant about, it looks like a normal driver in your hands. So the new Callaway Rogue lineup has a lot going for it. Sounds awesome. There's fantastic feedback across the face. I could feel a toey hit and I could feel a heely hit and I can feel when I hit it on the screws. There's other drivers out there that I've hit in my reviews that I can't tell the difference between a toe hit and a heel hit, that I like to feel feedback across the face, and you definitely get that with all of the Rogue drivers. I'm confident in telling you guys watching, these are so worth hitting. If you're in the market for a new driver and you're considering the Callaways, 100% go hit them. It's worth hitting to the other competing drivers. A lot of us are brand biased. Me personally, I haven't owned a lot of Callaway clubs, but I do have a Callaway 3-wood in my bag, and I didn't think I would have owned it had I just picked one up off the shelf. That's why you go get fit. So if there's a modern golf near you, head over there and get fit with a professional fitter. You won't regret it. Overall, it looks awesome. It'd be cool to see the different color changes, being able to customize it. I'm not a huge gold fan, but it doesn't look bad by any means. Am I gonna spend 130 bucks just to change the colors? Probably not. Very visually appealing. I love looking at the crown. I'm very impressed. For someone that wasn't always a huge Callaway guy, this is definitely turning my head, and I think it's worth for you guys hitting. Before you get out of here, make sure you smash subscribe and turn on post notifications, because one of you is going to qualify for our big 5K subscriber giveaway. Thanks again for watching. We'll check in with you next time.